Istanbul mourns today on The World. I'm Carol Hills. The attacks on Istanbul's airport left more than 40 people dead and hundreds wounded. Residents are reeling.
We do live our life. We try not to let this get to us, but I think this time we're all shaken up a bit, to be honest.
Plus, tens of thousands fled the fighting in Sudan and ended up in Yida.
Yida is not a refugee camp. You just don't settle refugees in the middle of a military zone, period. But of course, nobody settled them, they came.
And the man who made Canada's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, into a comic book hero.
I pretty much had a little shrine dedicated to Trudeau on my computer where I downloaded about, 40 different photos, trying to make sure I got a good idea of what he looked like.
Those stories and some capybaras coming up. I'm Carol Hills, and you're with The World. Thanks for being with us today. We're going to start off with what's become an all-too-familiar story. A small number of heavily armed men with explosives strapped to their bodies attack an international airport, killing dozens of people and wounding many more. Yesterday, it happened in Istanbul, at Ataturk Airport, one of the busiest airports in the world. The Turkish government is blaming ISIS, but there's been no confirmation of that. Journalist Zia Weitze went to the scene last night and again today, and I asked her for the latest.
So what we know is that the three men arrived in a taxi at the entrance of Atatürk Airport. Usually the last few months when I've gone to the airport, I've seen police sweep cars, but only private cars, not taxis. So these men potentially knew that, so arrived in a taxi, arrived at the international terminal, and then one blew themselves up at the security checkpoint outside the terminal, because to get into the airport itself, you have to go through an X-ray screening outside the airport. The second bomber blew himself up just outside the terminal where there's a glass wall. And by breaching this glass wall, he allowed the third bomber to get inside and detonate his suicide vest right at the guest waiting area of the arrivals point where families were waiting.
It seems that one or more of the attackers last night was shot before exploding his bomb. Who shot him?
So there's CCTV footage of a police officer who probably prevented further casualties by shooting what appeared to be the bomber who got inside the terminal, making that bomber lose his what looked like an AK-47. And when he was shot, he blew himself up.
So this was a policeman on duty at Ataturk Airport?
Yes, a policeman or a security officer. We don't know at the moment, but we do know he survived.
You went back to the airport this morning. What kind of damage is visible?
The ceiling, or where the bombs went off the ceiling, it's just fallen apart. There's twisted metal pipes hanging from the ceiling. The glass is shattered. There were bullet holes in the walls and in remaining glass panels and in columns in the airport. And a lot of it had actually been cleaned up in the morning when I got there. I was there quite early at 8 a.m. and quite a lot of it had been cleaned up.
What about the victims? This is such a sad story, at least 41 dead. Have relatives been able to identify their loved ones?
Yeah, as I understand, all but 4 of those who died have been identified. I attended the first funeral this afternoon of a young woman, a 27-year-old woman who worked at the international arrivals area with the Turkish ground staff. And it's, of course, devastating. It's, you think it's such a routine thing now almost in Turkey to cover these bombings, but every time there's a funeral, it just brings home that it's not. And, her mother, it was her only child. It was extremely, extremely hard to watch that funeral.
Freelance reporter Zia Weitze, just back from the Istanbul airport. Thank you, Zia.
Thank you.
Among the dozens of people killed in the airport attack were 13 foreign nationals from places like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Tunisia, Uzbekistan, China, Iran, Ukraine, and Jordan. Turkey is often seen as the crossroads of multiple continents, cultures, and religions, and in the aftermath of the attack, it seems even more so. We wanted to look more closely at Turkey's role in the region, so we called up Borzu Daragahi. He's the Middle East correspondent for BuzzFeed, and he's based in Istanbul.
Istanbul, Constantinople, this city has long played a role as a crossroads of civilizations, cultures, religions. It's